The 1980s was an iconic decade that brought us bold fashion, funky gadgets, and an unstoppable wave of new technology. But many of those things have now become obsolete and sometimes replaced by better alternatives. In this video, we'll be revisiting 12 gadgets and trends that were once necessary but are now almost completely forgotten. Number 1. The Sony Walkman. There's one gadget that defined personal freedom in the 1980s, it was the Sony Walkman. This little device didn't just change the way we listen to music, it changed how we experience the world around us. Before the Walkman, music was something you enjoyed in your living room with big speakers. But in 1979, Sony's invention turned music into a personal adventure. Suddenly the bus ride to school, the jog through the park, or even a lazy day at the beach could have its own soundtrack. The Walkman was a status symbol, and creating mixtapes for friends or loved ones became an art form. Carefully curating the perfect playlist was the height of 1980s romance. Each song chosen with intention, hoping to communicate a message that words sometimes couldn't. But like all great inventions, the Walkman slowly faded away. CDs came along with their shiny discs and longer playtime, followed quickly by MP3 players that could hold hundreds, no thousands of songs. These days, streaming services have made it so every song you could ever want is just a click away. But something was lost along the way. The Walkman was more than a music player. It was an experience, and some might say we lost a little of that magic when it disappeared. Number 2. VHS tapes. Before Netflix queues and YouTube recommendations, there was the VHS tape, the ultimate gateway to home entertainment. In the 1980s, owning a VCR meant you could record your favorite TV shows and even rent movies to watch at home. This was revolutionary. No more waiting for your favorite film to come on TV. You could pop in a VHS tape, settle down with a bowl of popcorn, and watch The Breakfast Club or Back to the Future whenever you wanted. As DVDs, Blu-rays, and eventually streaming services took over, the trusty VHS tape and its VCR sidekick quickly retired to the back of our closets. Today, we scroll through endless streaming options with a click of a button. It's convenient, no doubt, but for those of us who lived through the 1980s, there's a certain nostalgia for those Friday night trips to the video store and the excitement of picking out the perfect movie to bring home. Number 3. Trapper Keepers. If you went to school in the 1980s, Trapper Keeper was the perfect accessory for turning ordinary school supplies into a statement piece. Part binder, part folder system, and part fashion item. The Trapper Keeper was a must-have for every student who wanted to stay organized and show off their style at the same time. With its bright colors, bold patterns, and trusty Velcro closure, this magical binder could hold all your papers, homework, and class notes without them ever getting lost. Opening your Trapper Keeper during class was like opening a treasure chest, with its trappers neatly tucked inside. It felt like you had the power to conquer any math quiz or history essay. And if your Trapper Keeper had a flashy design, like neon geometric shapes or maybe a cool sports car, well, you'd turn some heads in the hallway. But as time passed, the schools became more dependent on computers. The need for physical folders and binders started to fade. Laptops, tablets, and online assignment became the new norm, making the trusty Trapper Keeper less relevant. Sure, you can still find a version of it today, but it's not the schoolyard status symbol it once was. Back in the day, though, having the right one could make or break your back-to-school style. Number 4. Pagers. Before smartphones made it possible to message anyone, anytime, pagers were the go-to gadget for staying connected on the go. They were small, simple, and incredibly effective. Pagers were essential for doctors, business people, and even teenagers who needed to stay in touch. For emergency personnel like doctors and first responders, pagers were invaluable. They allowed crucial information to be sent quickly, ensuring that help could be mobilized in seconds. But pagers weren't just for the professionals. By the late 1980s, they became a fashionable accessory for anyone who wanted to appear important, connected, or just plain cool. For teens, getting a beep from a friend was a small thrill. It meant someone needed you, even if it was just to chat. As cell phones became more affordable and widespread in the 1990s, pagers began to lose their charm. Why settle for a beep when you could have a full conversation? Today, pagers are mostly relics, used by a few specific industries, but in their prime, they were an early symbol of instant communication, just in a much simpler, more straightforward way. Number 5. Video stores. Let's just take a moment to remember Friday nights at the video rental store. The weekend was just around the corner and you were on a mission to find the perfect movie for a family night or a sleepover with friends. Getting your hands on a popular new release felt like winning the lottery, but if they were out, you'd have to settle for something else. Maybe a random title that turned out to be surprisingly good. Or not, that was part of the fun. Video rental stores like the iconic Blockbuster were more than just a place to pick up tapes. They were a cultural experience, walking through the aisles and running your fingers along the rows of VHS covers, hoping your movie was still in stock, was all part of the adventure. And who could forget those little "Be Kind" rewind stickers plastered on the tapes? The struggle was real when you returned a movie and realized you forgot to rewind it. Cue the additional fees. The video store wasn't just a place to rent movies, it was a social hub. You'd run into neighbors, chat with the clerk about the latest releases, and maybe even grab some candy for the ride home. But like so many 1980s staples, video rental stores began to fade as DVDs and eventually streaming services took over. These days, we don't need to leave the house to watch the latest movie. It's just a few clicks away. Convenient? Absolutely. But there's something undeniably nostalgic about the physical act of browsing for your weekend entertainment. Number 6. Floppy disks. Back in the day, if you needed to save a file or share data, the floppy disk was your go-to tool. These little squares of plastic were capable of storing a whopping 1.44 megabytes of data. To put that into perspective, that's about the size of a single high-quality photo today. But in the 1980s, floppy disks were indispensable for storing documents, school papers, and even games. Floppy disks weren't just functional, they were a symbol of sophisticated technology. Carrying one around felt like you were holding the future in your hand, even if it was just a few kilobytes of data. And let's not forget the satisfying click when you inserted a floppy disk into your computer's drive. Sure, they were fragile, prone to get bent or scratched, but they got the job done. As file sizes grew and CDs, USB drives, and eventually cloud storage came onto the scene, the floppy disk slowly became obsolete. Today, our devices store gigabytes, even terabytes, of information effortlessly. Yet the iconic floppy disk lives on in one small way. The save icon on most of our computer programs, which is a reminder of its legacy. It's funny to think that while the disk itself is long gone, its symbol remains a part of our digital language. Number 7. Shoulder pads. Fashion in the 1980s was all about making bold statements, and nothing made a louder statement than shoulder pads. These foam-filled wonders were designed to give women, and sometimes men, a sharp, powerful silhouette, and they popped up everywhere from blazers to dresses to casual tops. Want to look confident, strong, and ready to take on the world? Throw on a jacket with oversized shoulder pads and you're halfway there. It soon became popularized by TV shows like Dynasty. They represented power, ambition, and a sense of fashion-forward confidence. The bigger the pads, the better. They helped balance out the tight-waisted, bold-colored outfits that were all the rage, creating that signature V-shaped silhouette that we now instantly associate with the decade. But like many fashion trends, shoulder pads eventually went out of style. By the time the 1990s rolled around, the oversized, structured look was replaced by a more relaxed look. Today's shoulder pads make the occasional comeback on runways, but they're more of a nostalgic throwback than an everyday fashion choice. Back in the 80s, though, they were the epitome of fashion power. Number 8. Boomboxes. If the Walkman was about personal music, the boombox was all about sharing it with the world, whether the world wanted to hear it or not. These massive portable music players were a main part of the 1980s urban culture, especially in the era of hip-hop and breakdancing. Boomboxes weren't just portable stereos, they provided the soundtrack to block parties, breakdance battles, and park hangouts. With built-in radios, cassette players, and sometimes even dual cassette decks, boomboxes let you record songs, create mixtapes, and blast your favorite tunes all in one. The bigger the boombox, the cooler you were. And don't forget about the bass. Boomboxes were known for delivering deep, booming sounds that made sure everyone within a 5-block radius could hear your jams. As music technology evolved and personal devices like the Walkman and later iPods became more popular, the boombox started to fade from the streets. Today, Bluetooth speakers have taken over the portable music scene, offering clearer sound in a much smaller package. Number 9. Camcorders. Before smartphones and Instagram turned every moment into a potential photo op, the camcorder was the go-to gadget for capturing life's special occasions. Birthdays, weddings, family vacations. If it was important, somebody was probably carrying around a hefty camcorder to make sure it was all on tape. These devices allowed families to record moments that would otherwise be lost to time. And the VHS tape they produced became treasured family heirlooms. In the 1980s, camcorders were considered innovative. They were bulky, sure, but they gave everyday people the power to create home movies. There was something exciting about setting up the camcorder on its tripod, hitting record, and watching life unfold. Whether it was kids blowing out birthday candles or unwrapping presents on Christmas morning, camcorders made sure those memories were preserved. As digital cameras and later smartphones came onto the scene, camcorders became less common. Now everyone has a camera in their pocket that can record high-quality video with just a tap. While it's convenient, we've lost a little of the ceremony that came with using a dedicated video camera. Recording moments used to feel like an event. Now it's something we can do on a whim. Number 10. Paper maps. Before GPS apps could guide us turn by turn, paper maps were the go-to tool for navigating the open road. Every family road trip started with a giant, colorful map folded in a way that seemed impossible to refold correctly. Someone would spread it out across the dashboard, tracing routes with a finger, while the kid in the back seat tried to help, or pretended to. Reading a paper map required real skill. You had to understand where you were going, and how to figure out which route would get you there the quickest. And while that might sound stressful, it was part of the adventure. If you got lost, no problem. You just pull over at a gas station and try and figure it out again. Today, GPS apps make navigation so easy. You don't need to guess the best route. Your phone tells you. While that's convenient, there is something about the old paper maps that added a sense of exploration to every journey. Even if you were just trying to go across town, those maps gave you a broader picture of where you were in the world. Something a little blue dot on a screen just doesn't capture. Number 11. Fax machines. In the 1980s, no office was complete without the whirring, screeching sounds of a fax machine. Long before email became the standard, the fax machine was the fastest way to send documents across the country, or even the globe. Need to send a contract? Fax it over. Want to share an important memo? Fax it. That familiar dial-up sound as the machine connected was the soundtrack of offices everywhere. Fax machines revolutionized the way businesses communicated, allowing them to send paper copies of important documents almost instantly. It felt futuristic at the time, sending a piece of paper from one location to another in mere minutes? Incredible! But like all technology, fax machines had their quirks. Documents could be fuzzy, transmissions could fail, and heaven help you if you tried to fax something and the phone line was busy. As email, digital signatures, and cloud services became more common, the need for fax machines dwindled. Today, they're mostly a thing of the past, though a few industries still cling to them for legal or security reasons. Number 12. Arcades. Before PlayStations and Xboxes dominated living rooms, the arcade was the ultimate destination for gamers. Neon lights, the buzz of machines, and the clatter of quarters dropping into coin slots. Arcades were more than just places to play video games, they were social spaces. In the 1980s, arcades were where you went to test your skills, compete for high scores, and hang out with friends. Games like Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Street Fighter II ruled the arcade scene. Every kid dreamed of getting their initials on the leaderboard. And there was no greater feeling of accomplishment than watching those letters appear at the top. Arcades were packed with kids, teens, and even adults all coming together to experience the latest and greatest in gaming. As home consoles advanced and brought high-quality games into our living rooms, arcades slowly started to fade. Why spend your allowance at an arcade when you can play from the comfort of your couch? Today, while a few vintage arcades still exist, They're more of a nostalgic trip down memory lane than a regular hangout. The days of battling it out in person for the high score are mostly gone, replaced by online leaderboards and multiplayer games. The 1980s were a time of innovation, creativity, and a whole lot of fun gadgets and trends that once seemed like must-haves. Today, many of those iconic items have been replaced by newer, faster, and more efficient technologies, leaving them behind as relics of a different era. But while we've gained a world of convenience with streaming, smartphones, and cloud storage, there is a sense of nostalgia that comes with remembering how things used to be. Which of these obsolete gadgets or trends from the 1980s do you miss? Don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.